Good morning again. Lots of things going on this morning. That's good. We like dedications, babies, sick worship, singers. Did he go die somewhere? He sounded like it. Where did JB go? He's out there? Okay. Now, let's get all focused here. I didn't finish the story last week, and it's probably because somebody that wasn't here last week needed to hear the rest of the story. But before I finish the story, wanted to report on miracles. Lots of miracles happening. Love it. Juju's doing great. And Sterling Winters, who's the newest member of our church, after, was it 37 days? Where's Gene? There you are. 37 days? 37 days in NICU. He's home. This is Brazos and Sarah's little boy, and so he is home and well, and we're sure excited about that. Now, a year ago today, we met in this building. This stage wasn't here. In fact, that roof wasn't there. We had these two pieces of roof. The sun was shining. It was pretty, and that was our first meeting in this new building. I tell you that to say we've sure got a lot done in a year. I wish we'd had a lot more done in a year, but this is a lot. And if you want to afterwards, you can go look in the new building, which we haven't named yet. I don't know what it'll be called. It won't be the Narthex. And it won't be what do they call it in the office? What's the addendum, or who knows what? The annex, that's what it is. We won't call it the annex. I don't know. That's where children, nurseries, offices, Sunday school classrooms, and bathrooms will be. And so maybe we'll call it the bathroom building. But we have started putting up bathroom walls, so it's actually happening. They're nearly done insulating, so in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have a pot to pee in. I don't know if there will be sheetrock on the walls, but there will be a pot there. So enter at your own risk. We can stand up with sheets. So things are happening. You're welcome to go look at it, and you're welcome to grab a shovel or a hammer or a paintbrush and whatever and come work on it. So we're excited about that happening. And they told me Wednesday they're going to come pour that parking lot over on that side. They got all the dirt moved and all the metals out there, the rebars in, and so with a little bit of good weather, they'll be pouring concrete. So that's exciting. So here's the rest of the story from last week. I told you the story of Elijah, who had just witnessed the biggest miracle of his life. He had called down, prayed, and God sent down fire, and in front of all the other prophets, the prophets of Baal, in front of all the people, they got to see an amazing thing. And then the next thing you know, Elijah goes to a cave, and he's depressed. He's so depressed, he prays, God, please kill me. I want to die. All right? And so we were kind of real last week. Sometimes you can have great victories in your Christian life and still have feelings that don't add up to that, have feelings that don't connect with that. The part of the story that I didn't come back to that you need to hear, I think most of the time when Christians are in their most depressed moments, we say, where are you, God? Where were you when I needed you? I don't see you. I don't sense you. And so that's what we cry out to. I want you to go read it for yourself. It's in 1 Kings. Who remembers what chapter we were in? This is a quiz. What? 19? We'll go with 19. I don't remember either. Could have been 13, but you need to go read this story. What happens next after Elijah eats? God sends an angel. Is somebody texting me the answer? Oh, it's my children who are not at church. Pray for them. So after an angel comes and feeds Elijah, gives him water, second day, feeds him again, gives him water. After that, he takes him out to the mountain and says, watch this. As Elijah's watching, this fire comes, this earthquake comes, this storm comes, all these things come. I don't even remember all the order, but it says it like this. It says, and the fire came, and God was not in the fire. And the storm came, and God was not in the storm. And the earthquake came, and God was not in the earthquake. And it said, and after all these things came, there was a still, small voice. And God was in the whisper. I encourage you, when you're in your darkest moments, to listen to the still small whisper. We often are looking into the storm and into the fire, and we're looking all around going, where are you, God? And he's saying, look at me. I'm right here. Men's Sunday School was talking this morning about keep your eyes on Christ. I had never heard this verse. I want to throw this out there. This is just bonus. This won't cost you anything. It's in Psalm 32, I think, and it says, God will point you with his eyes. I'm going to have to go back and dig more into that. It says, God will point your direction with his eyes. And as a grandfather, I totally get this. They come over and, where is it at? And I go, you know how to point with your eyes, right? You look at it. If you're looking at God and he's pointing with his eyes, you know exactly where to go. We're often having God at our back going, where do we go? Show me where to go. And he's like, look in my eyes. I'll point you with my eyes. So, Elijah hears this whisper, and now, here's today's message. Some messages are built so you can learn, and some messages are built so you can be moved. I don't know who all needs moved this morning, but this one's to move you. So, hold still. I'm going to jump all over your toes. You need to hear what I'm about to say. Onesimus, in the New Testament, is a slave to Philemon. He's an indentured slave. My wife's teaching third grade about this. These kiddos learned about it this week, right? You know all about Onesimus. You want to come up here and tell them about Onesimus? Okay, you can do that when you're older. He has run away. He's talking to Paul. He gets saved, and Paul says, you got to go back, and you got to go finish the work that you owe. This is a hard book to read because you're kind of going, I want him just to be free. And Paul's going, you go do what your contract says. You go do what you've agreed to do. You go do the work. And the whole idea here is that New Testament, and through this chapter, it echoes all the way through the New Testament. We read it here, but it says this: work as though you're working for the Lord. My wife and I, since she's teaching third grade, this is on my mind. I'm thinking about this. I'm like, man, what a concept for you and I to do everything we do as if we're doing it for the Lord. A couple of things get caught up in that. To the lazy, it's you need to work hard like God's in charge of the job. And I would tell you, to the overcommitted, he's also saying your boss is not your Lord. Your customers are not your Savior. Don't do it to get accolades from them. Don't do it to get affirmation from them, because they may never give it. You may be disappointed the rest of your life if you're looking for your boss, for your customers, for the people that work for you. If you're looking to other people to affirm you, you will be sorely disappointed for the rest of your life. But if you work as though you're working for the Lord, what that means is you get instructions from the Lord, you go do the work that he told you to do, and then you go back and get affirmation from him. I know how this works. Again, this new journey I'm on as grandfather. God is such a good dad, he's like a grandpa. My little granddaughters can color whatever they want to color, and then they come bring it to me. And I don't say, oh, I wouldn't have picked those colors. Or, oh, you colored outside the line. Or, oh, I'm like, oh, you are amazing. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. In fact, when we work for the Lord and go show him, look what I did, the Lord goes, I love you, and I am pleased with you. And if you're hearing echoes of something other than that, that's something your dad or your grandpa or your uncle or somebody that wasn't God put in you. Your God loves you. He's pleased with you. He is going to affirm you, and he'll also convict you, and he'll correct, but he does that this much, and he loves this much. He doesn't put up with everything and tolerate every little thing. For those of you legalistic people that are going, that's not true, I'm telling you, he steers me. But he spends most of his time loving me, affirming me, talking nice to me, enjoying me. God loves me. And he loves you too. God told Onesimus, go back and do this as if you're doing it for me, and see what I don't open up in your life. And I want to take it back to the book of Judges this morning and give you the Old Testament story about what the product looks like when you work as though you're working for the Lord. In the book of Judges, one of the verses that jumps out at me, it says, "And people in those days did what was right in their own eyes." Can we agree that in America, people do what's right in their own eyes? We are watching an unfolding that I can't even believe is happening. I remember talking to my wife probably 20 years ago, going, man, if they let that be legal, watch what happens next. It's going to peel out, and this is beyond anything I can imagine. We just do what's right in our own eyes, and we say to each other, you do you. You do you. Don't judge me. You do you. It's crazy talk. It's weird, and I'm telling you, there will be judgment. I don't need to judge you. You judge yourself. I judge myself. God will judge me. I don't even have to tell people to judge me or not judge me. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, God is the one that gets to decide what is right and what is wrong. One of the things he thinks is right is that you go work as though you're working for him. Now, also in the book of Judges is one of my favorite stories. I shared it with DCA this week, and so it just re-inspired me to tell it again. But like Pastor Richard said this morning, sometimes we need to see things from a different angle. I'm going to tell you briefly the story of Gideon. You've heard it, or I hope you've heard it. If you hadn't, enjoy. This is a real story about a real man of God. But we're going to go back and dig into some places you've never thought about before. Here's the story. Before Gideon was born, his dad decided what his name would be. And his dad decided his name would be Gideon. And in Hebrew, Gideon means mighty man of God. That's what it means. Israel was in a terrible time. They were being attacked. They had lived under the curse. I think it was, the Assyrians and several other people would just come and get them. Gideon has now grown up, and he's been named mighty man of God, but he is the opposite of that. He is not living up to that in any form or any fashion. To the point, they are so beat down, Gideon is threshing wheat in the wine press. How many of you, be honest, have ever threshed wheat in the wine press? That's what I thought. How many of you have ever seen a wine press? You? How big was it? Oh, little bitty. Okay. At the time, these were rooms, right, inside of a building, and honestly, you get in there and you'd stomp on the grapes. You step on the grapes, and they press them with their feet. They didn't even have all the big stuff we do it with, right? But it's indoors. That's the point. Wheat needs to be dealt with outside, because as you do what you do with the wheat, the things that need to separate. The wheat comes away from the chaff. When you're indoors, it doesn't work. But they're scared to death. They need bread. They need to deal with the wheat, but they can't do it outside because they're going to get killed. And the people that were killing them, they were special. They were the special kind of people that would actually skin you alive. They would hang you up alive. I mean, these were disastrous, mean, evil people, not just like, hey, we're going to get you. Like, we're going to peel all the skin off your body kind of people. So, of course, they're indoors doing this. Gideon's indoors doing what's supposed to be done outdoors, and an angel of the Lord comes to him, and the first word the angel says to him is Gideon, mighty man of God. Other versions say mighty man of valor. Okay? He is supposed to be a hero, and he's living not like a hero. As things progress, angel tells him, I need you to pay attention. God has sent me to tell you. Now, if you know this story well, please forgive me for not getting all the details, but there's a lot of details. The angel performs a miracle. All this happens and leaves, and Gideon thinks, I'm out of my mind. I don't know that I believe that was actually an angel. I don't know what happened right there, but that was weird. And so Gideon says, God, I don't know whether that was really you or not, so I'm going to throw out a fleece. Again, Roger has a fleece. A few of you have fleeces. There are lambskins that you put on your motorcycle seat so that it's cooler when you're riding down the road. At the time, they were using them for blankets and stuff. It's a lambskin. Gideon says, I'm going to throw the lambskin out on the porch, and in the morning when I wake up, if the lambskin is wet and the ground is dry, I will know that you sent that angel to me. He wakes up the next morning, and it was just like that. And so Gideon, this mighty man of God, this mighty man of valor, says, I still am not sure. He reminds me of me. I think it's easy to tell a story after it happens. Oh, yes, God spoke to me, and I did exactly what he said. Well, it's not often like that with us. We're like, I think this is God, but I'm not sure. So he says, I'm going to throw the lambskin out again. And tomorrow morning, if it's opposite, dry lambskin, wet ground, I'll know it's you. And it happened just like that. So finally, God has Gideon's attention. He has his ear. And God says, here's what I want you to do next. Now, here's what's funny. And I want you to hear this morning. Here's some perspective stuff. This is more than a story about a man who goes and conquers another nation. There were some steps getting from A to B. God sends the angel. He listens. He tests. He finds out, yes, it's God. He tests again. He finds out, yes, it's God. And the first thing God tells him to do is go tear down the Asherah pole. The Asherah pole is a pole that they would worship to the god Asherah. And guess whose pole it was? The Israelites. God didn't send him first to go win a battle against another nation. He sent him first to go say, no, we won't tolerate this with our people. And Gideon says, I can't do that. They're going to kill me. God lets him go at night. He goes at night, he tears it down, and fully expecting to die, the Israelites go to his dad and they say, look what your son has done. We're going to kill him. The dad at least has the wisdom to say, time out, that's Asherah's pole, let Asherah kill him. The Israelites were dumb enough to go, fine, we'll let Asherah do it, fine. By the way, Asherah never killed him because there is no Asherah. He does not exist. But now Gideon, after he has conquered the fear of standing up to his own people, he's ready to go fight a battle. Now here we go, about to finish this story so we can come back and figure out where you are in this story. God says, now Gideon, you call out to the nation of Israel and gather an army. 32,000 men showed up. Like I told DCA, this is like 8 Dalharts worth of men. Like all the people in Dalhart, no, it'd be 4 Dalharts. Okay, except for there's people here that are not on the book, so I don't know. 32,000 people, you get it, right? 32,000 men show up, and Gideon goes, yes, we can win this war. And God says, Gideon, you have too many. Now, the first problem I have with this story is I'm like, I'm with Gideon. You can't have too many soldiers. And God's going, yeah, you can, because then you'll think you did it on your own strength. God doesn't want you to think you did it on your own, with your own strength. He wants you to know it takes His power, His hand, His might to accomplish everything that you do. So He says, look at them and tell them, if any of you are scared, just got married, have children, like if you have any reason at all to go home, go home. 20,000 of them turned around and went home. Leaves Gideon with 12,000, and he's going, okay, we can still do this. And God says, Gideon, you still have too many. He says, send the 12,000 down to drink out of the river and watch how they drink. They get down to the river. 11,700 of them throw their faces into the water and start drinking like dogs out of the water. 300 of them kneel down like this. Gideon's going, oh good, I only lose 300 this time. God says, you're keeping the 300. The 300 get geared up to battle. God says, and this is the point of the story that doesn't matter for you today, for the change that needs to happen in your heart. Gideon, he gathers them up. They get a jar. They each have a jar. They each have a torch. They have a trumpet. And they win this war in a non-war way. And the nation of Israel rises up, takes back over, and is good again. Now, here's my question to you this morning. When it comes to life as a Christian, would you say that you're a Gideon, I'll let Gideon stand here. Would you say that you're a Gideon? Like God called you to do something great and amazing, and you're going to lead thousands of people into victory. You were scared, but God, from the time you were born, you knew it, and you're going to be the hero. Or would you say you're part of the 300? Nah, I'm not going to be the leader, but I'll go fight for that guy. I'm going to go, and we're going to win this thing. Or would you say you're part of the 11,700? Like, well, I have it in my heart to fight, but apparently I just don't drink water right. I don't know what's wrong with me. I want it, but I just can't seem to figure it out. Or would you say you're part of the 20,000, and at the moment, it's time to do anything? Oh, we get to go home if we want to? I'm going home. Now, here's what's cool about this whole conundrum. The 20,000 that decided to go home and do nothing because they'd rather be at home. New episodes coming on of whatever they watch, right? Did you know that they got to live in God's kingdom? That they got to enjoy all of the spoils of victory? Did you know that they got all the blessings that came with the nation that is triumphant? They get it all. The 11,700, now they had a heart to fight, but they just can't seem to figure out the details, and I'll explain what those details actually were here in a moment. But it's like, I want to, but I just can't seem to figure it out. Did you know they got to live with all the blessings? All the good things still came to them, everything that came with being in the nation. And the 300, if you find yourself here, of course you get to live in the blessing, and you also get to live in the frustration of murmuring the rest of your life about all them. If you've ever been here, you're probably like, yeah, yes, I do whatever it takes. Every time I step up, I stand up, I do what's right, and they still get blessed. And it's a mess. In fact, you know it. You know if you've been a faithful person, a faithful Christian, a faithful husband, you've been a faithful tither, God has just been at the forefront of everything you did for the last 20 years, and you look at some hooligan down the road and a door opens for them and they just keep getting blessed and everything goes well for them. I mean, you can live a disturbed life in your heart being mad at the people that never show up to battle and get to eat the fruit that you helped put on the table. I know that as Christians, you are one of these four positions. You are one of these four places. And the cool thing is, we get to the New Testament, and God says, whatever it is you do it as if you're doing it for me. I think where the trap happens is, I think we get the idea when we're young, okay, I need to get saved. And if I get saved, I'm going to get all the good things that come from salvation, and all the bad things are going to go away. And then we read things in the New Testament like, we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against the powers of darkness in this dark world. I'm pretty sure if you decide to get over here in the 300, you're going to fight the rest of your life. I watch Peter in the New Testament pulls out a sword, chops off a guy's ear right in front of Jesus. I mean, we're not talking about he waited till Jesus was over there. And you know, nobody ever meant to cut off an ear. He wasn't swinging at his ear. He's trying to cut his head off. Dude flinched. He gets an ear. Jesus turns around and looks at Peter and says, listen, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. But that's all he says. That's all he really doesn't even get on to him. He's just like, hey, that's how you're going to be. That's how it is. Oh, and by the way, you're the rock that I build my church on. You read in another place in the New Testament that the kingdom of heaven is violent and it'll be taken by violent men. I'm telling you, all of history, there's been a place for the warriors in Christianity. There's been a place for the 300 that would stand up and say, we're not going to take it. We're not doing this. This is not happening. And there's also been all the other thousands. Well, what can you do about it? Let's get a new Asherah pole. Let's just add some new gods. Let's just think and let think. Let's just let people do what they want. Now, here's what I want you to think about today. I think if I'm in the 20,000, I think that I went home and I get to live in the nation of blessing, but I don't ever think my heart is elated about that. I don't ever think that I'm thinking, yeah, I'm glad y'all did that so I can have this. In fact, I think that people in this group tend to look up there and go, why do they have more blessings than me? Now, while the 300's looking down here saying, why do they have blessings that they don't deserve? These guys are saying, why do they have more blessings than me? And I want to tell you something this morning, and I believe this to be very important, to be very true. Listen to this. You can get saved and have a terrible time here on earth. You can get saved, like you can just barely get in. I think some of you, like the door's going to shut, or not you. Some of the people you know, the door's going to shut and you're like, dang, that was close. I think you can just barely get in. And I think you miss out on some of the things God has for you in this life. We read in the New Testament, especially in Revelation, there are going to be crowns. There's going to be things. There's going to be an awards ceremony. There'll be Dundies passed out and everything. All kinds of fun stuff's going to happen in heaven. And I think there's been a misportrayal of Christianity. I think you can get saved, you can just barely get in, and I think it's going to be a fight from now until you die in the areas that are over here. And I think if you're in the 11-7, I think many of us fall into that category. We want to be at the front lines. We want to be fighting. We want to stand up for our nation. We want to stand up for what God's wanting to do. We just don't know what that looks like. The difference between the 300 and the 11-7 is this. Those that were thirsty and shoved their face in the water took their eyes off of what was going on around them. Something about the 300, they were the hunters. Hunters, they keep their eyes, they're vigilant. The word vigilant means that you're always looking. When the whole world looks this way, you look to see what's happening over here. You want to see where the threat is, what's going on, and that is the difference between 11-7 and 300. It's saying, Lord, I want to be involved in the victory, and I want you to teach me how to be involved in the victory. That's the difference, is the humility to say, Lord, I don't know how to do this. I remember being a young pastor. Even probably right after I got saved, I got to give my first message back in 1996 and going, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. You only know me, what is that, 26 years later. I've been doing this a while, but I have mentors, I have people, I have to study. I love preaching. I love doing it now, but it scared me to death back then. What happens to the 11-7 is they think some people are just like, well, you were just born that way. It's just easy for you. It's not. It's not easy for me, and it's really not easy for Richard. Where did you go? There you are. It's not easy for us, but we submitted to the challenge of doing it like we're doing it for the Lord. It's not easy for me to sing. It's not easy for me to play guitar. It's not easy for me to counsel. And none of those things are easy. But I said, I want to be in the 300, and which means I'm going to have to submit and learn some things and admit I don't know how to do these things so somebody can teach me how to do them. I think that's where the gap happens. I think if you're sitting in the 11-7 this morning, you're like, I really want to be successful in the kingdom of heaven, but I just don't know what I'm doing. That's when you start going, Lord, show me, teach me. Promise you, people that are successful in ministry weren't born that way. I'll also tell you, if you make it to the 300, it's pretty yucky over here a lot. Those guys are going, how come you do it that way? And we don't like that. And we think you need to this and we think you need to that. So being in the 300, kind of a rough place. Kind of a mess. I'm not trying to deter you, but I just want to be honest. I don't know anybody over here that's going, oh, this is the best choice we've ever made. In fact, sometimes like Elijah, you're going, can you kill me? I'd love to go to heaven where there's peace and no more tears and no more frustration. I promise the most frustrating thing about being in the Lord's army is the Lord's not army. The biggest hurts I've ever had came from the Lord's not army. Biggest wounds, biggest stab, biggest, stabs in the back. Like 25 years of yuck. Stories that'll just make your toes curl. Just like, ugh, awful. But then, that doesn't make me want to not do it as if I'm doing it for the Lord. That's the whole point in this whole thing. I don't care if you're Gideon or in the 300, the 11,700, or the 20,000. The command is still the same. Do it as though you're doing it for the Lord. I would encourage those that are at the 11,700 to say, I really want to do that, and then you have to submit to somebody. Again, Pastor and I and our wives, we have submitted for years and years and years. I think we both had ministries. We had Sunday school classes or life groups that were growing, and our senior pastor would come in and go, oh, you got to quit teaching that class. It's getting bigger than my class, and so you can't do it anymore. Just crap like that. And the 11,700's like, fine, forget you. I just won't do it anyway. And God says, hold on. You're not doing it for him. You're doing it for me. Do it like you're doing it for me. So to the 11,700, the call is this. Doing it as though you're doing it for the Lord is going to him for the manual, going to him for the book, and he's going to send somebody your way. And you're like, I don't want to be mentored by them. Paul, who made it to the 300, God struck him with blindness in the New Testament, so he would have to go to Ananias' house and be mentored before he got to start ministry. I'll tell you this, folks, in the 11,700, you want to be productive and fruitful in ministry, in helping others, and counseling and loving people, you will have to submit and be mentored by somebody, and it's probably somebody you won't like. And it's okay. But if you'll do that, you will come through it, and you will be given a jar and a torch and a trumpet. And then you'll be like, no, I wanted a sword and some nunchucks. And God will say, that's not how we win victories. So that's the step here, is submission and honestly just humility to say, I'm going to let that person mentor me because God told me to let that person mentor me. Number 2, we're going to get to these guys. When you're in the 20, all I'd tell you is this. You got to go to God. Every time you're frustrated with them, so you say things like, oh, you think you're better than me? And I would say, no, they don't think they're better than you. It's obvious. That was quiet. It's obvious. They are willing to go out and risk their necks, risk their lives, risk their family, risk their finance. They are willing to go out and risk things, and you get the benefit of it? Yes. I would tell you that the 12,000 is better than the 20,000. Maybe in human standards. In fact, I don't even know that God calls people there. He keeps trying to pull people this way. I've never seen him try to pull people that way. But they're still saved. They're still saved. I'll guarantee you, you'll be in heaven. And when you get to heaven, you'll open your eyes and you will say, I don't think I did it as if I was doing it for the Lord. I don't think I stepped up everywhere I was supposed to step up. And, some of this means you need to teach Sunday school. You need to help with the children up here. And some of this has nothing to do with the church. Some of this has to do with being the bearer of good news at work. Shutting down gossip. Asking people if you can pray for them. Being the hands and feet of Christ in the workplace. I said this to somebody the other day, and if you're in the 20,000, which I'm assuming nobody here is in the 20, we're just going to act like this is your friends and family, right? They're just barely saved. Here's what I'd tell you. I'd say, if you got arrested in Dalhart, Texas, and had to go before a jury, and they were trying to convict you of being a Christian, is there enough evidence for you to go to jail? Do the people you work with, do the people you go to school with, do the people that go to Thanksgiving with you, do they really know where you really stand? And the only reason I think it's important for you to know that is I think mentally your life will be more fulfilled. I think your life will be better if you do everything as though you're doing it for the Lord. I am not a pastor that comes in and goes, you're the 20, get out. You don't deserve this. That's not it at all. I think all of us started here, and all of us had a desire to step up and be part of the 300. I don't know. I don't connect with Gideon. I don't consider myself a Gideon. In fact, I don't even know that I've met a Gideon. Like, those guys are crazy. They will stand up for things that will put them in jail. They will stand up from things that gets people isolating from them all day long. I mean, those guys stick their neck out, and so I try to be just in the 300. I just want to be one of these warriors that's like, okay, let's go do this. God, lead us. God, point with your eyes and show us what's next. Now, as I close, I want to bring you here. I tell the men's Sunday school all the time. There's like 18 of them in there. I love those guys. Those are drink out of your hand guys, okay? Those are the kind of guys that if you ask them to speak at your grandma's funeral, they might cuss, right? They would rather go catch the guy that is running from the law than watch the baptism. You know, they're all like, oh, cool, baptism. What? Convict. And so they're just like these guys. I want to tell you this. God sent my wife and I to Dalhart, Texas, and said, you're not coming to pastor a church. You're coming to pastor 2 counties. There's 2 counties in Dalhart, Dallam and Hartley County, that I'm going to do something amazing in, and you're going to go up there and you're going to raise up a group of people that are serious about loving on those people, helping those people, forgiving those people, making a difference in those people's lives, and that's what I'm here for. So if you're here, you've been called to get in that 300. And we can't do what we're supposed to be doing when we're bickering at them. I don't think you have to be excited about it, but you just can't be bickering about it. I don't think that we need to be looking down at those that are just not passionate about it. I don't think we need to be getting frustrated about it. I think it's just time to pick up the ball and run with it. Now, I don't know exactly what that means in your life. I just knew some of you needed to be moved this morning. The greatest blessings that you will get on this earth come from doing what God has asked you to do. I'm not talking about from abstaining what he asked you to abstain from. This is not about we got to be obedient and follow the rules, although God's probably working on some of you there. This is about when you're doing what he's called you to do, you don't have time to be breaking the rules. There's not enough time in the day to go do all your selfish stuff and do what he's called you to do. I'm telling you, some of you need a little kick in the rear to say, stop. Stop focusing on how they've hurt you and how this feels. And I'll agree, it hurts. We could sit down and compare a list. I got a big old long list of people that are ugly to me. That's how my grandma would say it. That's just ugly. I got a long list of people that are ugly to me, but I don't have a moment to not be fighting the battles he's called me to go fight and take the ground he's called me to go take if I'm busy trying to box you or them. They're not here. Or maybe you're here and you won't be here next week. I'm just telling you, there's fulfillment in a life where you're chasing after what God's called you to be. There's fulfillment in it. There's also pain. There's also suffering. There's also depression. There's also loneliness. There's also all the things that happen. But I'm telling you this, the 20,000, they struggle with pain, depression, loneliness also. To think that if you weren't over there, you wouldn't experience that, I disagree. I was just as lonely and miserable over here as I have the propensity to be over here. But as soon as I get my mind back where we're going, where we're heading, what God's called us to, my life is full of joy. My life is fulfilled. Not without regret, not without trouble, not without problem. I don't ever want to paint a picture that it's just like, it's all good. It's not all good. But I tell you what, he keeps blessing me in ways that they don't get blessed. And so if you want to be blessed in ways you haven't been blessed, do what God's telling you to do and say what God's telling you to say. Our problem, closing statement, our problem in 2023 as Christians is we wanted some fire insurance. We said, I just want to get saved so I don't go to hell. And God says there's so much more in this life than just avoiding hell. There is heaven in your future, And there is a kingdom that he said is near right now. You can enjoy the fruits of this kingdom that's happening right now by doing what he says to do and saying what he says to say. Will you bow with me? Father, I ask you in Jesus' holy name to fill us up with a desire to be blessed by you, a desire to be fulfilled by you. Father, I pray for the Gideons this morning, that you give them strength and power and that you fill them up from all the flack that they take. Father, for all those that are already in the 300 in this room, Lord, I pray peace in their lives. I pray for joy and for fulfillment, that you would rise up in them and that you would let them see all the great things you're doing in their lives. Father, for the 11-7, I pray for them, that they would slow down and have the humility to say, I want to do it and I don't know how. Send people to guide them. And Father, for the 20,000, Lord, just keep blessing them until they desire to fight, until they desire to rise up, until they desire to be obedient. And help the rest of us just pray blessings on them. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.